No, I don't see Donna. Is she on the
Yep,
phone?
she's here.
Okay. I'd like
I'm
to,
here.
okay, I'll call our meeting to order. And next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. We could do that, or we could just.
We've got a flag ready to go.
And we've taken care of it, okay?
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Look at that.
Stand
I'm
up.
gonna- Okay. Okay, are we ready? I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
to the flag
of the United
of
States
the United States of America
And to the
and to the republic which nations under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Marissa, are you recording?
Yes, I am.
It didn't say it. That's why I was
Oh,
asking.
okay.
So-
I thought I said it, but
Okay. Is there anyone present to speak? Do we have someone, Phil, that is would like to say a few words at this time?
So if there's anybody on camera that wants to do present to speak, if you want to raise your hand. I think it's only Erica on camera. Okay, and what
Okay,
she can do is Marissa's going to unmute people that are on the phone only. And if you have something that you want to share, when she unmutes you, you can share and then she'll remute you.
okay. I am unmuting 933-1464. Do you have anything you'd like to say for present to speak?
Well, that's the time.
I'm sorry.
hello, go ahead.
Yeah, not at this time.
Okay.
He's all set. That's Dave.
All
You
right.
can mute him. Yeah.
3777062. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
There you go. Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Castle.
Mrs. Castle.
Sorry, I have to.
You're fine. No, I don't have anything now. Thank you for asking.
Mhm. And
You can't tell who's here.
Elaine Newcomb, that's the name that's showing up.
Where's the unmute?
You are unmuted now.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to
Okay,
present.
we do appear in the agenda later on if you want to say something at that time.
Okay. 3777062 said they would like to say something. We're not hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Two things. You cannot click, this is Lori Semperbon, 271 Turnpike Road. You cannot click on the link when you open up the agenda. So you can't get to Zoom to participate that way. You can only get in by phone. Just FYI. And second, I would like to read this letter to Mr. Errico and the Wellington Board of Ed. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I wrote this letter to share my thoughts on your recent decision to deny Wellington students mental health services. Those who voted against the grant did so without considering what is best for our students. Your arguments against accepting the nonprofit grant mental health services were the following. Number one, the counselor might not be a good fit for a student. Number two, parents will provide mental health services for their children if needed. And three, it is not the school district's job to provide mental health services. I would like to argue that all of your points are not logical. Number one, parents always have the choice to decide if their children should participate with an on-site counselor. Because some students might not be a good fit, is not a reason to deny all students access to a much-needed service. Did you speak with anyone from another district, Stafford perhaps, currently using the service? A blanket statement that if one student does not click with a counselor means it should not happen for others is short-sighted. Number two, it is nice to think that parents would provide counseling services for their children if needed, but the reality is that many parents cannot do so, either because of a lack of money or insurance. Even if parents have insurance, the co-pays, especially with the deductible, can be prohibitive. Many parents are already overextended with working and taking care of their children, and finding the time to make an appointment and take their child is often not practical, even if they have the desire. Lower income families also have the added burden of transportation concerns with which to take a child to another location. In today's world, it is not reasonable to expect all parents to follow through with counseling appointments. Number three, arguably, there are many things that today's schools are being asked to do that were not traditionally part of the school district's responsibility. Physicals, dental care to start. There are now inner city schools that are setting up washers and dryers so that families can do their laundry. We now feed our kids in school because the lunch program sometimes provides the only well-balanced meal that some students will have during the day. Because counseling does not match your idea of what schools should do, does not match the reality of what kids need in today's world. And yes, the school district is a place where much of that needs to happen. Additionally, the Connecticut Commissioner of Education has told schools to focus on children's well-being during and after this coronavirus crisis. There is currently a huge spike in child abuse and neglect reports, and there will be a greater need for mental health services. As a previous member of the Board of Education, I have always had a great deal of respect for you, Mr. Errico, and always felt that you put children first in your time on the Board of Education. This decision to deny students free mental health services appears to be a partisan decision, which does not match with your great history of putting children first. Please reconsider your decision to turn down this much-needed free to Wellington service of mental health services for our students. Thank you.
Okay. Finally, there's one more person here that I'll just check with. This person is named Kyle Wyszynski on the, Kyle, do you have anything to say?
No.
Okay. All right, that is everybody.
Might I recommend that we do a roll call or a naming of voices for the people who are on the call who can't see us speak? They don't know which board members are present and which are absent.
You want to go through one by one?
Okay. Herb Errico present.
You said
Michelle, do you want
Cunningham
to go?
present.
Ann
Go ahead. Ann?
Ann Grosjean present.
Elena Testa present.
Donna Cook present.
Tracy's
muted.
Okay, is there anyone else?
We're just trying to unmute Tracy.
Okay.
There we go.
Tracy Anderson present.
And Liz Perry is absent. If you
Liz
want.
is absent.
Yep.
Okay, so we have 6 members present. Okay, moving on. I want to say good evening. As chairman of the Wellington Board of Education, I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present at our visual meeting and to those with phone access to our meeting. The board, the superintendent and I are pleased that you have joined us during these trying times as we celebrate our achievements, review information, and make policy decisions related to the effective operation.
She probably pressed something.
I think he just got dumped.
He'll have to reconnect.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to let him know.
He has a hot link and can jump right in as opposed to typing in all those letters.
How come the email which you sent me, Phil, it had a hot link? I just pressed it.
Yeah, so does the agenda, but I guess when Brenda sent it out, it removed the hot link. I think because mine, when I send it as a PDF, it automatically, because I think I have maybe a higher level PDF program in Adobe Pro, it automatically does a hot link. It keeps it for her. I'm just going to call Herb and let him know we lost him.
From now on, our town clerk is going to post on the town website so that it is a clickable link. We've recognized what the problem was in the way we were, when you scan it, it doesn't keep the link. It looks as though it's a clickable link, but it's not. So we are now, she's making sure to copy and paste everything into the body of the text instead of just clicking a PDF. So going forward, members of the public will be
perfect. Thanks.
If they typed everything in, they would be able to get into the link, but they'd have to do it by hand. So going forward, it should be easier for folks to get in.
I just opened up my Zoom app and typed in the meeting ID number and the password, and I was in. I didn't go through any kind of link.
You could do.
I don't know if that would be helpful for anybody.
You could do that as well.
Also, if I have meeting ID and password, I don't need the link. I can just go to Zoom and put it in.
Yeah, but if you have the link, it's faster. It just brings you right to it. Especially because I invited you.
Yeah, it was easy for me. Sorry. Okay.
Herb's getting back in right
Sorry, I
now.
have to wait. I apologize for headphone. It starts to get loud around here.
I apologize if I have to keep sitting back down, that I am the one person by the door to let the dog in and out. It's literally 2 feet that way, but I apologize for the visual distraction that will cause every time the dog decides she needs to go in or out.
So what is this? Stop video. Okay.
Marissa, do you see him?
He just popped back in.
Okay, I was going to email the thing again.
Yep.
There he is, his name.
All right. He's not connected to video or audio, but oh, there we go.
And do you know
Can you
where
hear-
Yeah, we can hear you, Herb.
Yeah, on the company computer here, and it just went blank. It's an old computer, so I'm not using my regular computer, but in any event, this is a regular meeting, and all the items that we're discussing here are voted on, have been, or will vote on, was posted. And also, it's my understanding that we're recording this meeting as well. The Wellington Public School Administration, the staff, and parents and students have pivoted and responded in with remarkable speed to the world's changing realities. We have been ourselves to the task of managing and using remote communication, which is a new norm for us to connect with our colleagues and with our board. And so the school system, in my opinion, has remained engaged and responsive and committed to our students, staff, and the community. And I think that what has happened over the last few weeks, we should be proud of the school system and our staff and administration for what they have accomplished. And for those of who are watching on the phone using other means or listening to us, we're proud of our school system and thank you for your interest in the Wellington Public Schools. With that, we're ready to move on to the superintendent report. And we have A, B, C, D, up to H. We have quite a few items. We have school closure, interim learning plan, food service, employee expectations, transportation, CES and HMS, roof replacement, CES septic tank, and leach field, and a discussion on retreats. And Phil, I don't think any of these are action items, are they?
No,
Mostly informative.
correct.
So how do you want to handle it? Do you want to handle each one and then have comments or discussion?
Yeah, I'll go through each item, and if the board wants to weigh on, I'll, when I'm done with that section, they can weigh in. I am going to ask, because I know Dave Litwin is on the phone, and I have a report. If I can change the order, I don't know if it's because it's under my report and it's part of the agenda if you have to vote on it, but I would request that we move item G under superintendent's report to be the first item so that we can do the CES septic tank and leach field, and have Dave answer questions first and allow him to have the remainder of his evening if he would like it.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we move item B, G, as the next item under the superintendent's report, under A1.
I second that motion.
Say your names, folks, so they know who you are.
Sorry, Michelle Cunningham seconds the motion.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion relative to the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Just hold your hand up.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I don't have everyone up there.
What I was doing at Board of Finance, if this works, is taking a roll call and one by one signifying. If that works better.
That's better because then people on the phone can hear it. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, Elena?
Yes.
Anne?
Aye.
Yes. Aye.
Okay. Michelle?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Herb?
Aye.
Perfect.
Okay, what was the total?
6 aye, 0 no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can we just make sure, it's Phil Stevens, Superintendent of Schools. Can you make sure Dave Litwin is unmuted for me?
Yes. Okay, should be all set.
I'm unmuted now.
Perfect. So Phil Stevens, Superintendent of Schools, I want to start and then I'll let Dave jump in here. Admiral Septic, as you know, has been, continuing their work on the leach field and septic tank at Center School. I'm just going to give a quick update and let him jump in and answer questions. So we have seven distribution boxes. One was in good condition. 6 of the boxes were replaced, including the main box. 3 of the boxes that were fixed were also protected with additional concrete because their location in the parking lot or under the blacktop. The 11 leaching trenches that we have were all located, which is great. 5 were in good condition, but they were not functioning because of blockages from the collapsed distribution boxes or crushed pipes. So the issues have been addressed, which is great, and those are now functional. 6 of the trenches were jetted to clear debris, and of the 11 trenches that we have, it looks like 3 of them are at the end of their life. So this work, I think that Admiral's been doing has definitely resulted in some rejuvenation of the system. The septic tank says it's a 7,000 gallon tank. on the original plans. Dave has discovered that it's actually a 6,500 gallon tank. And the tank has, tank and dosing chamber have been pumped twice during this project. Admiral found that one of the pipes was not the same size as listed on the plans, and that the last 6 feet of the pipe, and I'm going to scratch my head on this one, it actually sloped uphill. If you think about the way it's supposed to flow, it's not supposed to go uphill. The section of pipe was replaced and the issue was corrected. And they added a plumbing clean out to the tank inlet so they can improve servicing in the future, which is great. So that's kind of the good news. Right now we're a little under $16,000 into the project. And remember, a new system, you know, could potentially be in the $250,000 range. So $16,000 well spent. The board needs to consider what to do with the dosing chamber, which is deteriorated. And I think I mentioned this last time. This is the piece that literally they were taking like your fingers or a hand trowel, and the concrete was just mud. It was just the top that was scraping away. Dave is recommending to replace the dosing chamber. It would be an additional $18,600, which would offer, this is going to offer the longest life for the leaching field. I'm going to let him explain a little bit of that. It would also be code compliant, which if we ever had to replace the leaching field, this portion would not need to be replaced. So Dave, if you want to speak to your recommendation, I shortened, he gave me a big report, and I shortened the kind of overall picture of where we're at, but I want him to kind of share what the options are for either to replace this chamber, this section, or
Okay.
not.
Let's see. Basically, prior to doing any repairs on the leaching field, you had, with the failing main D-box, the 3 lowest trenches getting hit with the full effluent load from the building, centered around the 6-hour plus school day, really, you know, before lunch and after lunch. So with 1,200 gallons hitting those 3, that's where a couple of the trenches were overloading and breaking out to the surface. The original design was never intended to have that kind of concentrated load applied to a very few trenches. With the repairs on the leaching field, we brought 11 out of the 14 back to service. And essentially what the dosing chamber is meant to do is to distribute over a longer time span the effluent going to the field, thereby giving the system a chance to drain down, allowing oxygen to get into it, and also improving on the denitrification process. Now, on a modern system, usually something like this we would set up as a time dose system where we would distribute over a 24-hour period what you're seeing in about 6 hours. The advantage is there when you divide up the effluent load over the remaining trenches that are in good shape, you're really looking somewhere around 100 gallons a day hitting each one of the trenches, as opposed to the 3 trenches seeing 400 plus gallons and breaking out. So right now you've kind of got some options. I mean, the chamber structurally scares me. I mean, I was down in their confined space photographing and testing the concrete. You've got exposed rebar on the ceiling, and just with hand tools, I mean, 1.5 to 2 inches of material is pretty much either gone or so soft I really wouldn't want to hold my breath that it's structurally safe. The dosing equipment in there was really of an older design that was well intended, but it wasn't reliable, and it provided no method for the school to know if there was a problem. Back also during that design period, there was the assumption that this chamber is 515 gallons. If there was an event that occurred in the school where, say, you know, people working there crushed the exit pipe, you know, bringing material into the playscape or otherwise, people would catch it quickly, Well, the reality is the thing would overflow during the school day and flow down into the parking lot and the playscape and all that. Because I doubt anybody's going to be standing at the window watching this thing create Vesuvius in the backyard. The current design requirements require 150% reserve capacity over what expected flow is, which would push you up to about 1,800 plus gallons per day. What I was proposing was essentially go into a 2,000 gallon tank, have it a pump time dose system, so it's spread it out over 24 hours, have high level alarms set so that before this becomes a problem, it tells you you've had an issue going on. Tie it in with the school Delta electronic system so that both maintenance and other personnel would be aware, you know, if there's issues starting to develop, because usually you can tell there's a problem long before a complete failure of a pump occurs or other
Dave,
electrical
can I just
device.
interrupt you for a second?
You'll see increased.
This is Phil Stevens,
Yeah, go ahead.
Superintendent. So the Delta systems, so board members know, at Center School, the Delta system is a system that runs our, helps, basically, it's kind of online. It helps our heating system. So if you remember when we had a pipe freeze at Hall School, that Delta system would alarm, let us know that the heat is dropped. If Center School's heat drops and something shuts down, the boiler shuts down, an email would go to the custodian. They would know about it. This system would be tied to that Delta system, and if there was some sort of failure or something going wrong, that would notify the custodian. Thanks, Dave.
Yep. Now, one of the advantages of tying it in also is you can calculate the amount of usage. For example, if we increase water consumption at the school, that would show up and that would allow people to track, you know, for a cost benefit kind of analysis in the future. Because obviously everything costs money, both upfront and ongoing costs. The other thing I kind of look at with this particular part of the project right now, there is still some opportunity to see, you know, some cost savings. I mean, a little farther down in the email that I sent to Phil, there was some work we did in the parking lot where we added additional protection for some of the D-boxes that were crushed. Early on, the school never had some of the driveways where they have it now. And with some expansion on the parking area and where buses travel, that created some problems that, again, reduced the size of the field. With the ability to monitor what's going on both in the field and at the tank and dosing chamber, essentially it's more like a business case where you're able to go and determine as life starts getting closer to the end of absorption on the system, you're going to see an effluent increase for rise inside the field. Thereby, you don't have an immediate failure where you're in a panic coming up with money. You can see this coming for years. So that's kind of the short story on it. There's obviously a longer, more verbose explanation I can give of the technical benefits, but that's kind of giving you some of the advantages here. It's not a cheap price tag. The vast majority of this is materials. So it's an expensive design because, unfortunately, when you start getting into heavy-duty tanks and also monitoring and also dual pump systems, you know, it's basically a system you'd see at any commercial application or modern school that had this kind of arrangement.
Phil Stevens, Superintendent. So Dave, if this goes in, I think our system is about 40 years old at Center School right now. What do you anticipate, we would have rejuvenated the system? What are you looking at percentage-wise? You know, what would we be at? How much have we rejuvenated?
Right now, I mean, we've rejuvenated, I would say, 75, 80% of the leaching field. Now, again, back when this was first built, probably the water per capita, water per student was lower. There is an increase per student, I would suspect, over time. But I would say with proper maintenance, I'd be looking for about the same amount of time, if not more, out of the system. So this system could go a lot longer, 30, 40, 50 years, assuming, you know, we keep levels where they're at. if we go and increase the number of students, obviously expect some sort of decrease in life of the system. Other factors to consider here, the components I selected that would be prone to wearing out, I picked the lowest but most reliable cost in that we went with smaller pumps because we're only going a small distance, and they're off-the-shelf components where you can go and get them readily if you have a lightning strike or some sort of strange mishap, like somebody takes out a transformer in front of school. So in that sense there, we're also looking at ongoing costs because we're the people that get the emergency calls and see the blown up components and know what works and what doesn't. And since Americans seem to, as of late, decided to purchase toilet paper in bulk and seem to be using it rather quickly, creating a lot of emergency calls, we see a lot of the other side of the business. Questions or other concerns?
I think we lost Herb again. Any questions for Dave?
Well, can I ask? Elena Testa. So what do you think the final price would be for the town when everything is completed?
I gave Phil a quote on the dosing chamber, which was $18,607. There is some minor issues to be addressed. I held off on doing the exit baffle modifications to the tank because we would be digging it twice if we did the repairs now on the exit side of the tank and then digging it again for the chamber. So there's a cost savings there. Driveway, we did not pave the areas that we poured concrete because I suspect the town public works gets a far better price on asphalt than we do.
They've
Now going back,
agreed to pay it. We would just be paying the cost of material.
That's wonderful.
I've already talked to the director of public works, and it's something they definitely could do. We would just be paying the cost of the material.
Okay. Now back to your question, Elena. Let's see. I'd have to pull up the email on the original. I believe the tank exit pipe modification was $750, and beyond that, I think other than obviously paving issues that may come back to our end for paving, that would probably be about it. I hope it's about it.
So as I understood, the total price could be like within 40,000, around 40,000. Okay.
Let's see.
Yes.
I would say, I think the total for both of them together, but I see Phil nodding, so I'm assuming that's probably in the right range for doing everything.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If you want to raise your hand.
Ann Grosjean, a question for Phil. Do we have the money for this, or do we go to the Board of Finance, or?
So I do think with Phil Stevens, superintendent, I do believe we have the money for it. And when I get to the financial report today, I will share it. I also think that I asked Dave about the percentage because I wanted to know what we were getting for our money, the board's money, the town's money. And if we're going to get another 40 potential years out of this, for that amount of money, it seems to make sense, especially if a new system would cost $250,000. It seems to me to make sense. Any other questions? Donna?
Donna Cook. As far as the timing goes, since the kids aren't in school right now and won't be back in school for quite a while, can this be done before school would theoretically get back in session so that it's both safer for the workers and also not a danger for the kids?
Well, Dave Litwin here. Yeah, that is very reasonable. I've already spoken with the health district. I've been keeping them up to speed on the things we've been doing, improvements and so forth and so on. And yeah, they would be working hand in hand on this. And yeah, they're aware that this would need to be done before bringing kids back. I didn't really get a good idea of when kids will be coming back. I'm assuming it's not going to be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Also, just to go back to Elaine, I just totaled up the numbers. You're about 35.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Federico needs to be unmuted. No, I'm
What's that?
talking to Marisa. Sorry, Marisa. Yeah, thank you.
Herb, welcome back. I'm not sure what's going on over there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was out for a while. Computer crashed.
Any other questions for Phil Stevens, Superintendent? Any other questions for Dave Litwin while we have him?
All set.
So I think this was basically presented initially. This was seen as an emergency project, the way it started. I think at this point, you could continue that thought process and say that, hey, this is all part of the same repair and they've identified the issues, or you could determine if you wanted to add something to new business and just figure out, approve it. The thing I don't have is that I don't have the exact number yet. He sent me the exact number, but you asked what the number was, Elena, and my concern is I don't have the pavement costs yet. It's going to require a transfer to do it. So as long as the board is okay with seeing this as as part of the emergency that happened and part of that repair, then I think that you could just move forward as is. Herb, are you okay with that?
Yeah, that seems okay, Phil. We can go along with that. Just keep us in, let us know on the email what you are doing. Keep us up to date. That's fine.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Dave, Phil Stevens, Superintendent. Thanks, Dave Litwin, for your information. And I will say that his reports have been great, and they've been very reasonable and responsive to our needs, and I greatly appreciate his feedback. So thanks, Dave.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dave.
If you have any questions, feel free.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks.
See you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to A now.
Okay.
School closure. So this unprecedented event has really it's resulted in a significant number of executive orders from the governor. It's something that I think that we're not used to, and all the executive orders can be found at ct.gov. You can see all of them. I think we're on like 7Y or something now. I just wanted to provide you a timeline of events so far and how those executive orders impact the Board of Education as a result of COVID-19. And I'm going to walk you through some dates just to give you a picture here. And it's not long, but it's going to give you a sense of just where we've come in 1 month. So March 12th, Executive Order 7 waived the requirement for 180 school days, which has never been waived. They never agree to that, and they've waived that. At this time, the commissioner, and at that time on March 12th, the commissioner and Connecticut State Department of Ed advised districts to simply cancel school and plan to make up the days, like snow days at the end of the year. That quickly changed. On March 13th, we announced that schools would be closed for 2 weeks. On March 15th, Executive Order 7C canceled all public school classes from March 17th through March 31st, and also provided municipalities with a 30-day extension for budget adoption, and that included regional districts. On March 17th, Executive Order 7E provided further modification of the 180 school day requirement, and that allowed districts to close on their scheduled end date as long as the district provided opportunities for continuity of education to all students, and that was to the greatest extent possible. The first time they did the 180 school day executive order, they basically said, plan on going to the end of June. And then, just a couple days later, they said, this is going to be long-term. Don't worry about going to the end of June. The other thing that happened on that is, in regards to that, is our last day of school then will be Wednesday, June 17th, assuming that you just never know what's going to happen these days. At this point in time, our plan is that's June 17th. That includes our 4 snow days. That would end up with 177 student days because of the days that we missed. The executive order on March 21st, Order 7I suspends in-person budget adoption requirements, and that this order provides the Board of Finance the power to establish the budget for the 2020-2021 school year. It also allowed Region 19 to establish their budget on their own. They have already voted. March 23rd, the Wellington Public Schools started our interim learning plan. March 24th, Executive Order 7L extended the school closure to April 20th. On March 26th, Executive Order 7N suspended school testing. Our SBAC testing has been canceled for the year for the 1920 school year. March 31st, Executive Order 7R provided a continuation of funding for boards of education requiring the state to process appropriated grant funds, including ECS. All of our grants are intact from the state. It also required a continuation of payments of public school staff, which we had already committed to in Wellington. Lastly, this order required the preservation of student transportation services and special education providers for outplacements. The piece of the order around transportation is going to require some negotiations, which is currently in the works, and I will give you more information later in the meeting. April 10th, Executive Order 7X extended the school closure through Wednesday, May 20th. If we return on May 21st, we would have 19 school days before the summer break, and we would have completed 37 days of our interim learning plan. That hopefully gives you some background of what has been a whirlwind of a month for us and my staff, and just want to give you a sense of the school closure, kind of the executive orders that come out and the impact that they've had on the schools. Any questions on any of the executive orders or what I just shared?
Yeah. Elena Testa. Oh, sorry, Herb. That's okay. My question is, do we have any flexibility about those last 19 days, potential 19 days to be back to school, or they gave us some kind of options, do not return?
Stephen, Superintendent. So at this point in time, it's purely the decision of the governor, and he's honestly, he's been consulting with the Commissioner of Education, the Health Department, all the pros around this. They are the ones that are dictating when we can open at this point in time. They are considering doing, there's been talks about doing this in waves depending on counties, but it is not a Wellington decision at this point in time, and there is no. If they said we could open, we would, I think, have the opportunity to make our own decision. However, we would have to make up those days. It's no longer, it wouldn't. You have to see them as something you'd have to make up. So it wouldn't be June 17th is the last day.
Phil, this is Herb. In regard to the transportation services that we're continuing and so forth, but we're not transporting all of our students at the present time. Now, are we still giving the bus company money for that service that is not taking place? And also, are they paying their drivers at this time? In other words, if we give them money, is some of that money going to the drivers, or what's happening in that area?
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So Herb, if you don't mind, I will answer all of that under E and transportation.
Want to hold off? Okay.
I will answer all those questions in there. Any other questions about the executive orders that have come through?
What did he, was there anything on policies and things of that nature in the executive orders? that would affect us. It seems to me some of them gave the superintendent some added strength or power in that area because of the emergency that we're in.
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So one of the items that they came down from the State Department of Education was a sample policy that districts could, boards could kind of institute, which would give me more authority to act quickly on things without having to adjust. This is so unprecedented. To be honest with you, we have not, we've kind of kept our cool. And I say that from the standpoint of we haven't jumped on the bandwagon with making rash decisions. We've kind of waited to see, and let's take it, an hour to determine things or a day. And I'm glad we've done that. So I don't think we need the emergency policy, maybe something in the future. And the only piece of the emergency policy that I think might be important for future board consideration is around the absence of a superintendent, the absence of an administrative team in some sort of layers. And the reason that's come out is they're looking at continuity of leadership. If I were to get COVID-19 and to be hospitalized and incapacitated, what is the next step? Who's the next in charge? What are they responsible for? Who do they report to? Do they have the same powers as the superintendent? Those are things that you would want to weigh. And because we're a small staff, and I say that from the standpoint of the business office too, this comes right down to anyone that's in a position right now where, because we're small, if COVID-19 were to go through my administrative team or to go through the business office, how would we respond as a district and as a town? Those are things that we might want to consider in policy and lay out as part of our emergency plan. I don't think anybody had anything like this in their emergency plan.
Most schools didn't have it. A lot of businesses did have plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, that was the only thing.
Okay.
So, Elena Tester, so how are you suggesting to start, and when do you suggest to start working on those emergency policies? Obviously, we don't have them in place now.
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So at this time, I would wait, Elena. I think we're moving along at a good pace. I will tell you that my administrative team knows basically my every move at this point in time, because our communication is so close, even though they're on vacation. They've been getting emails from me all week, and it's only Tuesday. And so that's an important piece, I think. But we want to make sure there's something in place for the future. And they know my team could step up right now and fill the gap. They might have some bumps to determine, but I think that we'd do okay.
Thank you.
So I think it's further down the road. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll move on to item B, the interim learning plan. This is since kids have been out and we started schooling from home. I will tell you the amount of work to establish the interim learning plan has been tremendous. It's been quite a feat. I don't think people understand what a significant change this is for school districts. I just want to thank my administrative team and the school staff for all of their support, effort to get it off the ground. We were able, and this is not a joke, Friday, it was March 13th, we were told, you're going to take some time off, straight from the commissioner and the Department of Ed. You're going to make these days up. Don't worry about it. By the next Tuesday, it was start thinking about it. And by Wednesday, it was get an interim learning plan going as soon as possible. If you were going to do this in the business world, you would take a year to plan this out and make sure it was rolled out. We've done something in 3 days, and it was significant. We were very, very aware not to how we did this. We didn't want to overwhelm families with hours and hours of required work. The Commissioner of Education has said, he said it over and over, the most important thing for our students right now is their physical and emotional health and safety. And we crafted our interim learning plan with that in mind. Some districts you're going to see are moving from 5 days a week of instruction to 4 days a week. And the reason you're seeing that is because of the strain that was put on families. If you are still, if you're a single parent and you're still trying to work and you have a couple of kids and you're trying to provide their schooling, that is no small feat. And if you're trying to do that for 5 hours a day, it's not reasonable. And so that's why a lot of school districts are backing down. We believe, however, that the workload we're requiring our students is reasonable. And those seeking more work, they can access supplemental material. So we have mandatory required work, and then we have supplemental work. And that supplemental work is across all disciplines, and students can access that if their families and students are looking for more. If not, they're required to do the mandatory portion. So let's say this for probably every district. It's not providing the same level of instruction that we would if we were in school by any means. We are doing the best we can in this situation as all districts. We're going to be shifting to, after April vacation, to include a balance of recorded lessons, videotape instruction, and online programs combined. We've been using Zoom, which is what we're on right now, for meetings. We've been using Zoom for recorded teacher messages. They've done some morning meetings with students live, and we've done some lunch groups. So I actually jumped into a first grade lunch group the other day. It was great to see kids. We are not using Zoom for live instruction unless it's one-to-one. And the reason I say, I said this earlier about we were thoughtful about our decisions and didn't jump on the bandwagon right away. You have to consider student privacy still. And if you start doing groups, it's very clear who is in that, that video with you, and parents can see it. So we're doing one-to-one instruction only. Or if we do a full class, it's not instruction, it's just a check-in or a morning meeting to see what's going on. We're using Google Classroom, mainly in the middle school. It's kind of our housing for all of our students' documents. They have their accounts, and it allows students to share their work with their teachers. Last week, we invested in a program called Seesaw for the elementary school. It's a program that allows students to kind of turn in work. It's a platform that teachers will be able to put videos on, and we will be rolling that out in the very near future. Think about this, is that there's a lot of free programs out there, even the paid programs. Zoom, I heard they added something like 70 million clients in March. Think all of these educational providers are in the same boat. So as we try and get these programs online and ready to go, if we haven't had them yet, it's going to take them some time to process that. And so we have to be patient with that. The other piece is we're going to be providing our teachers professional development. I don't believe in throwing them to the wolves and saying, test it out, go ahead and see what happens. We're going to be providing professional development after April vacation. We've already done a survey around numerous programs, and they're providing documentation to say, I need help with, and they will be providing, we will be providing that professional development to them so they can meet our expectations. They know how to film lessons. They know how to put that information out. We finished our third week of the plan. And listen, as we go forward, we're getting feedback from parents. We're getting feedback from staff members, and we'll continue to adjust as we go forward. Our online participation rates so far this past week were lastly, regarding our interim learning plan, challenge, because we constantly were trying to figure out what people needed. Any questions about the interim learning plan at this point, as I just rattled off a bunch of information?
Anne Grosjean speaking. We participated with my 2 grandchildren, and I think it went very well. The team were very helpful in getting everything running correctly. A few years ago, we voted for iReady, and that has been wonderful. I believe each child is working at their own level, and we were one of the 13% that had not met our expectations. So we very kindly heard from the teacher, and I knew that I needed to keep an eye on her, not just leave her there for 30 minutes, but kind of keep a closer eye. So I think it's been very successful. Both of my grandchildren, a kindergartner, third graders, have Zoom experiences with their classes where they got to see all of the children in the class, which they really loved. That was very special. So I think it's been a real success.
Tracy Anderson. My daughter is in 8th grade and things have been going very well too. And I have to commend the teachers because we've had both email and phone calls just to check in and see how they're doing from not just the classroom teachers, but from some other support services and the principal is sending videos all the time. And I feel like it's providing that connection that was so quickly taken away. It's bringing back some of it and allowing my child to be connected and still involved in doing things like even yearbook and possibly the morning news happening again, and trying to keep things somewhat normal in these not so normal times.
Mr. It's Ann Grosjean again. Mr. Napoli has been providing a little morning welcome each morning, which has been fun. And it gives us a chance. You can listen anytime you're ready. And so we have breakfast, then we put Mr. Napoli on and everybody's mindset changes. It's time to start school now. So that's been a really big help. And we also get updates about what's going on and all of that. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah, I just let him back in. Marissa, did you get lost too? Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to see if I can.
There's his wife.
Well, I've not had the. Marissa, I just made you the host again. Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Sorry, I got kicked out for a second.
Okay. Okay, so I'll move along to food services again. Phil Stevens, superintendent. Our food services staff have been doing an outstanding job preparing meals for pickup at Hall School since March 23rd. That's when we started, and this is for all students. An online survey is sent out each week, and families are able to sign up for meals for the week. We're serving meals every single day, but we're only on site for every single day, but we're only on site Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays for each week. We may be moving that to 2 days a week after April vacation. It's just to limit the number of days that staff is in there. They would still provide meals for every day. We served a full week's worth of meals yesterday, breakfast and lunch for each day. We sent out over 1,000 meals yesterday to 106 children in the wind and rain yesterday at Hall School. About 45 families are accessing our meal service each day. I'm hoping that's going to go up. We have a few volunteers delivering meals to families that are unable to pick them up. And I would like to send a sincere thank you to them. I greatly appreciate their support and help. Because our food service program is self-sufficient program and we rely on lunch sales to maintain our program, the board may need to consider at some point some funds to support this program. All of the lunches and breakfasts that are going out are covered by the state at full reimbursement rate, like it was free. We will get $3.41 per lunch and $1.84 per breakfast. But in the end, because we are still mandated and we're paying our full staff, I'm thinking we're losing about $750 a week. I am looking at a grant to support the program, and No Kid Hungry. I can't remember the name of it. No Kid Hungry, I think is what it is, to see if that will help. And we'll keep closely monitoring the situation as we move forward with this closure. I also am looking at trying to get some more folks, because we know who our students are that are free or reduced lunch and breakfast, and not all of them are accessing the program. So we're trying to find out why some of those folks are. If we need to deliver to them, we will, but we want to make sure we have that information. Any questions about the food services program? Okay, I will keep going. Item D is employee expectations. So I had talked to Herb, and it was decided to keep all our staff employed at the start of this closure, which was good because it turned out we were required to through an executive order anyways. We have identified expectations for all of our staff, and we've done so collaboratively. And I want to say that we've done this without the need for contractual letters, MOUs between our unions and the boards. A lot of folks, this is again, jumped on the bandwagon and said we need an MOU to provide homeschooling, you know, schooling from a distance, and wrote MOUs. And then within 2 days, a new executive order came out and they had to change it. Our unions have worked with us throughout this. I have to commend them for that. They have been very collaborative. They've shared their concerns and we've addressed them, and we will continue to do so. So I just want to say thanks to them for that. I also greatly appreciate our staff and their flexibility during this extreme adjustment. It is a wild time. All the administrators and teaching staff are working obviously remotely. The teaching staff is expected to be available during the day to support student learning and connect with students and families via Zoom or email and or the phone. Teachers are monitoring student progress and developing supplemental lessons for students. Moving forward, again, I already mentioned they're going to be recording some video lessons as well. The administrative team and I have also been meeting with the teaching staff through Zoom on a regular basis, and you know, we are working to maintain clear communication. I think it's important that they know our expectations, they can voice their concerns, and we're also trying to keep that communication with families. That's important too with the community. The biggest need so far, and I think we're in good shape now, is that helping support families with technology, just passwords and things like that, just to ensure the plan is running efficiently. The non-certified group, which is the custodians, the nurses, secretaries, and paraprofessionals, they're also completing their assignments. Custodians are on site and cleaning the buildings and working on projects using the social distancing guidelines. The nurses have been working with parents to return medications, which are in school, and completing some of the required paperwork and reporting that they need to do. The secretaries have been working both in the buildings and remotely, answering the phones, which they can roll to their cell phones and ring anywhere. They've been helping organize the Chromebook and iPad distribution. Carla has Hall School delivering Chromebooks. Nicole has been updating the website, and they've all been answering emails. The paraprofessional group has been completing a minimum of 15 hours of professional development every week. We have a couple programs we've given them, and which is a great thing, because one of the things that came out of our special education audit was that we wanted more professional development, and here we are. So they have the opportunity to get it, which is great. Overall, just as far as employee expectations, this is not a comprehensive list I've given you, just a snapshot. I will tell you that all of our groups, anybody that wants to say, you know, teachers are not working hard, staff is not working hard right now, they're missing the boat. Group is working extremely hard, and I assure you our entire staff is working incredibly hard on the closure, during this closure. The last thing I'll say about employee expectations, and I saw this in a review that I received from Ed Week. It was a quote, a teacher who, veteran teacher, 16 years of experience, and she said, "I feel like I'm a first-year teacher again, and I'm learning this all over again." And so that's just something to consider as we move forward. Any questions about what the employees are doing or any of the expectations at this point?
Yeah, I think this is Herb. In regard to the staff, I think they've done a magnificent job in turning this around, going to distant learning in a matter of weeks. And the results of it have been excellent from my point of view. However, you did mention that 85% of the students doing some of the work, and there is a small percentage. Is it the 7th and 8th graders, or is it any particular group, or just overall? I mean, there are bound to be some that need, you know, following up. And a little extra, incentive to do what they're supposed to be doing. But
Yeah, Phil Stevens, superintendent. So it's not 7th and 8th graders. It's across the board, Herb. It's not by suddenly there's a grade that's not doing work. It's some grade levels are as high as 95, 97%, and some are lower. The basic, one of the big tasks for staff right now is if someone's not doing their work, and I wasn't trying to throw you under the bus earlier. It's not that we're looking at necessarily the entire number of minutes we're wanting. It's also, if you've done nothing, that's where you're falling into the 87%. We're really following through those families. We want to know why. To be honest with you, we have to realize and we have to work with these families, because in the end, some of these students might be caring for a younger sibling while mom or dad is off. Single parent might be off working. And I saw someone was saying that one of their friends they know that was in another district, a single parent was coming home at 5:30 and trying to do 4 hours of work with a kindergartner and a 4th grader. And it was like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So we're working with individual families. Our social workers are involved. And we have to, and I greatly appreciate the commissioner for saying this, is that their emotional health is number one. If we're going to cause a big stir right now in families, and I think it was Michelle so Lori Semperbond said it earlier about the rise in claims to DCF right now and abuse. It's also the same thing for domestic violence. We don't want to add more stress to households right now in an extremely stressful time already. And so if we're only at 87% and we know what those other kids are doing and we're working with those families, we have to be okay with that right now. And I've reassured the staff of that, and to work with those families on an individual basis to make sure they're supported and they're getting some work done and that we can help them out.
I know we talked about tablets and iPads and so forth, getting that equipment out to the youngsters. And because we did have a few that didn't have them. I think there were 12 or something like that. Do all of them have them? They all have access to this type of communication now?
Phil Stevens, superintendent. So I think right now we have one family left to get iPads to. And honestly, if someone says, tomorrow our system was working and it's not working anymore, we get them what we need. We have plenty of Chromebooks. Their Chromebooks are getting outdated, but they work for what we're using them for, and we're still loaning Chromebooks out. And iPad. We're really only loaning iPads out to kindergarten and preschool students, but really 1st through 8th grade, we're loaning Chromebooks.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ann Grosjean again. Herb, the kids are working individually on the iReady programs, and it's for the younger kids, it's an hour a day, half hour for reading, half hour for math. So it's kind of easy. Like in our case, I set them all up and I got them going, walked away, came back, half hour later, assumed that they had been working. And, I guess they were not working the whole time. So it's that kind of a thing. I think it's not really, but it is individualized. So, so I think it's really good for the kids, but I'm learning myself as a guardian that I need to pay a little more attention. So.
Excellent. Good. Any other comments from board members?
Well, I have a question, Elena Testa. Phil, you mentioned that the teachers sometimes are calling. Do they call sometimes to every student, or is it like obligation for them to call at least once a day, or just when the need arises?
Superintendent. So we are really asking each teacher to connect with families, whatever works best. Some families want the email, some families want the phone call. Their priorities, if they know their families, and this is what's great about small towns and teachers really knowing their students. They know who they really need to talk to and check in with. They're not calling every day. They're using star 67 so they don't give away their personal cell phone number. But if basically a teacher is required to check their email throughout the day, we're not requiring them to sit at their computer and wait for an email to come in. That's not how it works, because they're doing work after kids are done as well. You know, they're checking their data, they're creating new lesson plans, they're in staff meetings, but they're required to respond back in a certain period of time. And if we don't hear from someone, if we don't know, and we're already past this, Elena, is we're going to find you. We you know, different people, it's kind of a chain right now that if a teacher has tried, made attempts, and it's gotten nowhere, it goes to the administrator, and it could get to me. And, you know, if we need to sit outside the house and beep the horn and say, hey, what can we help you with? How can we help you get online? We would do that. We haven't needed to do that. Families have been super responsive, and you know, I have to give a shout out to our families. They're doing a great job, and they're doing the best they can with, you know, with where we're at in time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I move on to E?
Okay, let's go to E.
All right, Phil Stevens, Superintendent. Moving on to E, transportation. So Executive Order 7R requires a continuation of payment for student transportation services. Each Board of Ed needs to negotiate with their transportation provider to identify a more accurate cost because of the closure. And this executive order, really the purpose is to sustain continuity of service when school resumes, and to keep their employees paid and insured. The bus company has to provide documentation that they're only charging the actual and reasonable cost of sustaining wage and health insurance payments. And I will tell you, area superintendents, my group that I collaborate with, we've all collaborated. Many of us in this area use M&J, and we don't want to be asking for different things. We want to work with M&J and allow them to get the same requests, even though we have our own contracts. You know, the things we're requesting are things like a cost breakdown for basic transportation to and from school, a list of their active employees, and a detailed breakdown of each active employee, their wages, their benefits, and the actual fleet cost, including maintenance. Now, here's the issues from the bus company perspective. They laid off their drivers on March 13th, and our drivers are still laid off. And so they're collecting unemployment. We are not going to pay our entire bill. We've paid March. Wellington is not going to pay April at this point until we know that those drivers, per the executive order, have been made whole, that they're employees and they know how they're going to be paid, because it doesn't allow M&J to, through this situation, be enriched beyond, you know, the actual and reasonable cost incurred. The other issue with that is that, you know, bus companies want the clarification too, because as soon as they give me in Wellington what their cost breakdown is, and I go to another town and ask what their cost breakdown is, we very clearly can identify what their profit margin is. And so the bus companies are not willing to jump right in and offer information. They're trying to get guidance from the state as well to figure out what is part of this negotiation process. So as long as the board agrees, I'm going to continue to work with the area superintendents. I will continue to work with the bus company and see what information comes forward. But I'm not going to pay that amount until we know what those costs are. Because if the bus drivers have been collecting unemployment and we pay the bus company, they're making out tremendously, and that's not the intent of this. Any questions about the transportation at this point in time?
Elena Tester. So obviously we are definitely saving on gas at this point.
Bill Stevens, good thought. I wish we were. This sounds ridiculous, but this is the way it works. So we buy our fuel, our diesel, in bulk, and that's with the town. And so what happens when we buy our diesel in bulk is that you have to buy a certain number of gallons. And if you don't use them, you're still paying for them. That's how you get your lower rates. Every year, we've always used our fuel amounts. And this year, because the buses are not filling up every single day, we're not using fuel, but we're still going to be billed for it. And it's not the company we purchase it from. They're not making out. It's the company that they're getting it from that's making out. Because our company, we use Dime Oil. We get our fuel from them, and they don't have storage tanks to hold all this, incredible amounts of fuel. So if it comes down to it and we're out for the rest of the year, we may consider a way to run these buses, fill up as many tanks as we can, to find some creative solution to use these buses. Ashford's using their buses to deliver food, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of savings to be had in fuel because of that. I see Herb's gone again, so I see Donna.
Mm-hmm.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So this is my question. I believe, and somebody can check, that home heating oil and diesel are the same thing. They're just dyed different colors. If that's the case, wouldn't it be beneficial to reallocate the gasoline for the diesel someplace else, or maybe fill up some people's tanks in town if we're paying for it anyway? People that are on assistance with home heating oil and things like that, so that it doesn't go to waste.
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So I think we're going to definitely have to be creative and identify some method. I don't know what that method's going to be yet, Donna. If we come back to school, we're definitely going to be using some.
Okay.
And that will be through, could be through July 1. But we're going to have to look to be creative. And I don't know what our numbers are right now for the town, which is how the parents look at this. But it's definitely something that we're going to have to be creative with. So, challenge so.
Okay.
Elena Testa.
Sorry, my battery's dying.
You're having trouble.
Go ahead, Elena.
So my question, is there a way for us to negotiate with that oil company with which we have contract, negotiate on next budget year? We could have a lower discounted price. Otherwise, there is no, it's not fair towards our town.
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So again, Dime Oil is not the one that is getting hit here. They're just a distributor. If we find that we're going to have it in excess, we can go back to them and ask for a lower rate than what we've negotiated for next year. But they're the ones that then they would be taking the hit. And so, I'm not sure. We're trying to be creative with this, and we're, I'm meeting with Donna on Friday to go through a lot of budget things. The fuel is one of the things, and Erica could weigh in on this too. But we're kind of stuck with where we're at right now. Herb, do you want to or Marissa? Is Marissa? Yes. Do you want to unmute Erica so she can speak to the town side of the fuel?
Erica Wyszynski. So we actually, Elena, that's a great idea, but we actually negotiate our rate for the 2021 year in December. So we've already done that. So we've already committed going forward. So I wish it were just as easy. We'll certainly look at every avenue, but we may just be stuck with the cards that were dealt. We don't have a large enough fleet to utilize the amount of fuel that we have. And quite honestly, we didn't know that we would be out this long. I think, as Phil said, things evolved very quickly, and we filled up our fuel tank right at the beginning of this, just when schools were first shut down. So we have a full fuel tank, and we're going to be in the process of replacing that fuel tank. So there'll be an issue with having much more fuel in it when we go to replace it than we had first anticipated. So we're going to look at all avenues of what we can do with the fuel that's in that tank. But as it stands right now, it's not looking very good that we're going to be able to save money on fuel.
Thank you.
Pointing, but we're going to work to see what we can do. nothing else, I'll move along to.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so F is CES and HMS roof replacements. As you can imagine with the COVID-19, it's kind of put a hold on some of this work. We are at a significant disadvantage right now, communicating and meeting at this point. I'm hoping we're going to be able to pick this back up relatively soon. Thankfully, the patching has been working well at both buildings and has been successful. But at this point, it's just been on hold for a month as basically every moment has been spent towards something to do with COVID-19 and the interim learning plan. So at this point, the roof replacement is on hold. We did G already as the septic tank. If I could jump to H, the retreats. Again, because of COVID-19, we had a board member resign. I would like to propose the board holding off on a board retreat and a new member retreat, because at this point, I think it would just be Donna. Donna, if you need some information, I'll gladly spend some time with you. But we're going to have another new board member coming in at some point. And if it's okay with all of you, until we have a chance to bring in, actually be face-to-face with a speaker, I'd like to propose holding off and doing that until a later date when social distancing is lifted and we can be in the same room together. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We have enough on our plate at the present time, and but we can still set plans for that. So, some preliminary material and try to get a date in, because we keep postponing it, and we really should do that in the near future. Okay, thank you very much, Phil. The next item on the agenda are committee reports, and I have no knowledge of any committee reports, although we do have a policy committee, and we have a finance committee, a curriculum and instruction committee, which we combined, and also we have ad hoc committees, which are staff negotiation clubs, wellness, security, facilities, and our transportation committee. But if there is a need for any of these committees to meet in the near future, we certainly will schedule them. But at the present time, we have enough going on. Moving along to item 7, financial report. Okay, item A, B, and C. The 2019-2020 budget is we'll update that. Also, the 2020-2021 update, and also eventually the capital improvement plan. Okay, Phil, go ahead.
So, the 1920 budget update. Brenda sent out the update to you via email. I hope you had a chance to see it. We have not had a chance yet to separate out the budget the way I asked, but I think I have the information. We were talking about, especially now because of the difference with salaries, in particular at Hall School right now, because we had open positions, there's a bunch of money in there. So I'll go program by program and give you a sense of what's what. Program 1, Center School, all of the salaries have been trued up now. And it shows that there's $32,000 in the Center School account. About $12,000 in that is in supplies and purchase services. The remainder would be in salaries. In Program 2, you see about $200,000 in savings in salaries at this point. The remainder is spread through sports, supplies, and purchase services. And again, the reason there's so much at Hall School, I hate looking at that number and having people think, what in the world are they doing when they budgeted here? We had open positions for a significant period of time, and a grant was also applied to Hall School instead of Center School because of the number of students for free and reduced lunch. It had to be applied at Hall. And so it looks like there's a huge surplus because of those open positions. That's the reason why.
Phil, I'm not sure everyone has that attachment.
It was sent.
Update.
You
may have a copy.
Separate.
I don't have a copy.
I think it was sent separate. Did you all receive it or no?
No, I don't think. I
have it.
I have it.
I didn't get
I
it.
have it.
Sorry, Herb, I'll make sure you get that.
No,
It
it's
sounds like
okay.
everybody else has it. It
I
went
have a
separate.
question.
Yes.
Elena Tester. So when it comes to whole school, and you said there are 240,000 because there are open positions, I hope we are not trying to fill them up at this
Oh,
particular
no,
moment.
no.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
no, we're not doing any hiring
Yeah.
right now.
So then potentially, so from that 240,000, how much money goes to the open position? Like really open?
It's
Is
around,
it all?
it's around 200,000 because it was numerous positions. So between the hiring, Phil Stevens, superintendent. So between the hiring people, when we hired people, they came in at a lower rate, and then we had open positions, there was a significant savings. So I'll give you an example. Erica Bouchard was the math interventionist at Center School. We could not fill the 7th grade math position, so did the job. So there was no salary being paid out there. We couldn't find a science teacher for, and again, these are all shortage areas. We couldn't find a science teacher. So we had an opening there for quite some time. So those amounts are significant because of things like that. We also, with the library media specialist being, Amy Redding was hired, that now is billed to Center School and not Hall School. So that was another $80,000. So there's a shuffle here. And this is, so when we talked about where's their money for the CES septic, there's money here for that. And so there's some other things that are going to be coming your way. And what I'm trying to do with Donna this Friday, and I can't finalize it yet because I don't know that we're going to be out for the remainder of the year. But what I'd like to do is we're trying to close all of the open purchase orders right now and get a good sense of what's really left in the budget. There's some subscriptions that we're going to have to pay for because they're year round and they'll be paid for through purchase services. But there are some things that we also need to take care of that. This may help offset our budget next year. If we're being asked to cut some money, this is a potential. I will also tell you at this point in time too that Novus, about a little over 6 weeks, 4 or 6 weeks ago, when doing some research on our Chromebooks, they discovered that, and thank God again for Novus, they discovered that our Chromebooks, the operating systems, will not be able to be used for SBAC testing next year. And which I'm a little frustrated with the state that they would even do that. But the number of Chromebooks we have would cost us about $90,000
to replace. Wow.
Okay. Well, can I continue? So that was exactly my point, which you mentioned. So as I understand, if we forget for a moment about Chromebooks, just for a moment at this point, so potentially we can easily take 200,000 out of that account towards the future next year budget. And I'm sure some other accounts may have some maybe minus savings, not this. So is it something real, something to consider?
So when
as you said?
So when I get to 2021 budget update, that's one of the things that I'm going to look at with Don on Friday, and we need to determine what we can use and what we can't. And that's also going to be, you know, the town is going to want to weigh in on that too. Are they going to want to see that as a prepay? The auditor has frowned on the prepays. Some of the things that I would argue would make sense for a prepay, which would offset your budget, would be things like paying Novus. You would prepay them a certain amount because you're contracting out for years at a time as opposed to 1 year at a time. As principal, there were programs that we would pay $7,000 for 3 years, or if we paid that contract every year annually, it would have cost us $14,000 over 3 years. That doesn't make sense to me, so I would try and do a 3-year contract. So when we get to looking at what we have to take care of and what we have in this budget, that's what I need to do with Donna. Not everything in there is savings yet, but there is going to be some savings in salaries for sure. And then it will be up to the board to determine how do we address that and what is the auditor and what is the town going to be okay with us doing. So it doesn't look like we're going on a spending spree.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Program 3 is special education, and that's the excess cost grant came in. We got a check for $46,000. I will tell you the shortfall is still, even though of COVID-19 and our outplacements, those students are still being serviced. So we still have a shortfall of $225,000, and that will be covered by that entire amount that's in the fringe benefits line. So that's a benefit. If we didn't have that, we'd be in big trouble this year. And again, that was unplanned students that we didn't know they were going to be outplaced, and they were. Program 4 is transportation. I spoke about transportation already. We're waiting on a fuel reimbursement there. And again, I'm not sure if we'll find some savings through negotiations yet or not. Program 5, I'm anticipating some minimal savings in supplies and health services because the students are not there. Program 6 is curriculum and staff development. Some of that money that's in professional development costs that normally we send people out to go to conferences, they're not going to conferences right now. They're all canceled. So we may see some savings there. Program 7 is utilities. There's really no change there. Program 8 is operations and maintenance. There's a $20,000 in that account. We may see some savings there from summer maintenance and hiring folks at a lower rate. Again, some savings, not all. Program 9 is system-wide support. There is some remaining money in purchase services there for things we have to continue to buy, like our Barracuda software and things like that, that we have to take care of. There's very little left in that account that's in the supply lines that won't be spent. And then Program 10, fringe benefits. Most of that money that's in there is because of that percentage. We thought we were going to have a 14% increase in insurance. That's why there's so much money left in there still. That's what we're going to use for the special ed shortfall. The other thing I will say is that there's going to be some savings in that line in substitutes because we don't have we're not using substitute teachers right now. But I will tell you that we are getting unemployment claims from substitute teachers, which we have to honor. And so the savings we would use for subs is probably going to be used to pay the unemployment claims, because what we budgeted for unemployment, again, we never hit it. And of course, this year we are. Any questions about the financial report for 1920? I will try and bring you, for the May meeting, what I'd like to do is bring you a forecast to get us through the end of June of what we believe will be spent and what will be left in those accounts, and some options to take care of things. We may need to do it earlier, some of that earlier than that, because we're going to have a budget meeting to discuss the Board of Finance's request. We lost Herb again, so I'm going to go to item B, 2021 budget update. Again, there's an executive order that I shared earlier, and that provides that the Board of Finance, that gives them the power, the ability to set the 2021 budget. They sent a letter today. I was at the meeting last Thursday. I expressed my, I don't know if I would say displeasure, but maybe displeasure, that they would request that the Board of Education submit a 0% and a -3% cut, especially because of the percent that's contractual. I sent the letter to you all today. Did you all have a chance to see that letter?
Yes.
No.
Okay, it's in your email. I mean, I don't want to read it, but basically you can watch the video. The gist of it is that they're asking all budget writers to resubmit a budget of 0%, and what would a -3% budget look like. I will tell you that I believe that the minimum budget requirement still comes into play. I have emailed the state to confirm that. I have not seen any executive orders changing that. And basically what the minimum budget requirement means is that we could not go under last year's budget. And so that means a 0% budget would be cutting around, and I'm rounding numbers here, it would be cutting around $300,000. Region 19, however, already approved their budget, and it's down about $170,000 less than last year. So because the minimum budget requirement is factored K-12, that comes off the 300,000. So rough math here, what we believe is that the K-8 Board of Education would only, and I say only, you would need to cut to get to zero $130,000 to get to zero. Peter Tanaka said it in the meeting at the Board of Finance. He understands that the town can be heavily penalized if you don't meet your minimum budget requirement. And if you come try and get it right down to zero and something changes, you might get penalized. So I will have the exact numbers for our budget meeting next week once I have a chance to sit down with Donna and as the business manager. And as you know, these are approximates, but they're pretty close. I'm also, the administrators are on vacation this week. I need to be able to meet with them when they return from vacation. I will be meeting with them at 8 o'clock Monday morning. I'll be meeting with Donna this Friday. So I'm hoping that we can have a special budget meeting, workshop discussion of sorts to review options next week, potentially Thursday if that would work. I will tell you that I don't think, I know that they're requesting for us to come in for with a zero budget and a -3. I think it's a waste of my time and the board's time to come in with a -3 if minimum budget requirement wouldn't allow us to do it anyways. So if I get that information, I will do that. But again, with some of the savings that we may see in the current budget, it could impact that. But I still need data. That was only Thursday night. I was off on Friday, and I need some time to look at that information, prepare some options for you, and prepare some numbers, and then you can decide from there what you want to submit to the Board of Finance. Questions about that?
After you put all this together, do you think a special meeting would be in order?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, I'm hoping that I will have information Phil Stevens, Superintendent, by next Thursday, which I'm just trying to move my mouse here. Next Thursday would be the 23rd. I don't want to guarantee or book that tonight because honestly, it may take me 1 or 2 meetings with Donna Latinsik as a business manager, and it may take me 1 or 2 meetings with my administrative team. It depends on the numbers of what things turn out for this year, what we come up with for ideas for potential cuts for next year. But you know, I need to have some conversations with my team before I present you with some options. I think that's fair. But I'm aiming for next week, the 23rd. That's kind of a target goal. I'm supposed to have this to the Board of Finance by the 30th. And then it would be presented, everybody would be presenting their information to the Board of Finance from there. But every budget writer has been asked to do the same thing.
Did they give you any rationale why they want to reduce it to 0 or -3%?
I think those numbers are random. The 0, maybe 0 is not so random. -3 maybe a little random. They just said unprecedented times, and you know, because they're not sure of the financial impact at this time, that they would like to see what that cut would look like. Erica did remind the Board of Finance that they do have line item veto on our budget, so you would basically be presenting them a number to say we could cut this amount, this is what would be impacted. But in the end, if you change your mind and they cut that, whatever number that was, you could adjust your budget to meet whichever way you want. They do not get to dictate what those items are.
Michelle?
So to take that the next logical step, Phil, no, I'm sorry, Michelle Cunningham, to take that to the next logical step, does that mean that the information that we're providing to them is not something that we have to, we've already voted on a budget, we've presented to them, we've met our statutory requirements of what we need to do to the Board of Finance. What we're doing now is more informational to help them make a decision based on anything that might have changed since we presented our original budget, or is the process more one that they're acting asking everyone to basically redo the entire budget process and start from scratch and do an entire new presentation based on.
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So I kind of asked that question. I think we have an obligation to review some of the items that I think you have to look at everything. But, you know, I have some things off to say on the top of my head. I mean, we added and we even had this discussion about the long-term sub that we put in that we've used every year that we've just end up luckily being able to cover. We put 20,000 and I think we ended at 30,000. You know, that's something that you could look at. But if that comes out again, what they're looking for is we need to be very clear to the Board of Finance to say, look, if we take this 30,000 out, you need to understand that if we have a long-term sub, we don't have the money to pay for it. We have to come back to you. And so those are, I think we need to paint a picture for them to see what we'd be losing. You know, what would the student impact be? And I think I was pretty clear to say that 97% of our budget is contractual. 3% is the supplies and some what we'll say choice. The supplies are things like paper and pencils and scissors and new, you know, PE equipment and art supplies they're consumables, music. Those things are, you know, you can't eliminate those things from the budget. We're already bare bones, and I tried to paint that picture, but they're doing this exercise, and it's going to be up to them, I think, to decide if you know, they think the Board of Ed is offering something up. The other thing we have to do is, if we can potentially we may have a little bit of insurance savings if we drop any lower, but because again, we had such a high rate last year that we planned for, might be a wash still. So we need to look at all those things, and that's why I say I'm going to need some more time to look at those things. I think they just want to see a list. It's not going to give them a brand new budget, but they want to get a sense of what do you think you could eliminate, and what would the pain be?
So, Elena Tester. So my question about -3%, submitting the numbers for -3% budget. So we are obligated to submit those numbers too, unless you find out then it will put us below the minimum budget requirement. Otherwise, if it doesn't put us below, then we are obligated. That's how I understand. Is it correct?
Bill Stevens, Superintendent. So you can decide as a board. That letter usually comes out every year and says 0%, and you submit your best budget. I don't think you're obligated to. You could decide as a board to say, for us to cut $600,000, which is what they'd be asking at -3%. What are you going to eliminate? Are you going to put fear and you're talking about people at that point, right? Are you going to put fear in those people that they're going to lose their jobs, and is that worthwhile? I think that's up to the board to decide if they want to submit a -3 if MBR doesn't come into play.
Okay, so that's up to us. We do have a choice of, we're not obligated to submit both numbers, yes? That's how I understand. Oh, no, so.
Again, Phil Stevens, Superintendent, I think if you decide that that's not reasonable, then that's up to you. But you have to say, I don't think it's reasonable, and you know, we would have to cut 5 teachers to get to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you very much, Phil.
Yep, the last item I have was C, was the capital improvement plan. Again, this is another area that you may want to consider once we get to that because of the Board of Finance letter. I've already started looking at that. I know Erica did as well with Donna. We've already had some conversations about some of the things that are in CIP that would not impact the Board of Education budget, but would help the town side of what, you know, what those numbers would look like. One of the things that I'm going to recommend is that there's about $90,000 already set aside for the center school heating project at center school. They've already approved that money to be allowed to go into the next fiscal year. And they did the same thing for the fiber optic. I would, you know, I think I'm going to be sharing to the board to say that may be something that you want to offer up to them and put that back in the future and tell them, listen, if one of the heaters breaks at center school, we're going to need 10 grand. We'll give you 90 back and know that we need to do it at some point in the future. but again, that's going to be up to you. So it's just going to, right now, the money was approved to go into the next year. It's already been voted on. The reason they did that is to buy us more time. And so it goes into the next year. If you don't want to do that, we would be looking at completing that CIP project this summer. And we are still definitely in the works for the fiber optic project. I would not change that one because that's connected to a grant that we're continually working on with E-rate. And that may pay for itself in a year if we can get some agreement on pole connections and some agreements here.
Okay, we don't have to take action on that right away, Phil, do we?
No, Donna has her hand raised though, Herb.
Yeah, we'll take care of that later. Okay, anything else? Okay, moving on to the next item, which is new business. The approval of the minutes of March 10th, 2020. And I think you received this through the mail. What is your pleasure? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of March 10th.
I move that, Anne Grosjean, I move that we accept the minutes from Tuesday, March 10th, 2020.
That motion, Michelle Doucette Cunningham.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising their hand and saying aye. You want a roll call?
Okay, roll call. Marissa?
Okay, Anne?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Elena?
Yes, Elena, sorry. Elena, aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
And Herb?
Aye.
That's 6 yes.
Okay, it sounds like it's unanimous. Okay, we're moving on to present to speak. Okay, do we have anyone on the phones? Do we have anyone on the phones coming in?
There's nobody on the phone. Erica has her hand raised.
Okay, I don't see her on the monitor. Go ahead, Erica.
Thank you, Herb. Erica Wyszynski. I want to thank you all for embracing this new normal way of meeting for now. I've spoken about this at Board of Selectmen, and I want to mention to this board, I really need to thank publicly to you all the work that the collaboration from the superintendent's office to allow the town to utilize some devices that the school had and weren't being used so that we could have all of our town employees work from home if need be. We have really a skeleton crew in the TOB at the time, and we most of our departments did not have devices to allow them to work from home. So it just shows the great amount of collaboration between the town and the schools in Willington. And it really, it's made a difference. In a week's time, Novus managed to get the town up and running, things for the school up and running. Without them, I don't know what Phil or I would have done. But I wanted to say thank you and make sure that your board knew the kind of cooperation that happens behind the scenes. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Elaine Newcomb is still on mute, so we can't tell whether or not she wants to be present to speak.
Pardon?
Ann Castle, but you could wave. We could see you.
Elaine Newcomb, you are unmuted if you have anything to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you. Yes, I have two questions. One just rose when the superintendent was talking about the Region 19 budget. Do we have a per pupil cost on our charge for that new budget? No?
Not that I know of. I think the E.O. Smith per pupil is probably about 19,000, but I don't have the exact number at this time.
Where would one find that? Their budget, if their budget was approved, I assume there's That must be on a budget document somewhere.
Yes, the superintendent's office has that information and so forth. We,
The Region 19.
the actual budget, EO Smith budget was down about 48,000, I think. It's less this year than last year.
Okay. The other thing is, I'm concerned about the fuel issue. And it sounds like that issue may well be affecting many towns in the state. And certainly the governor has been prolific in addressing issues and changing policies and executive orders. And I would say that all of or many of the school districts in the state may be being penalized because of this situation. Nobody buys fuel and expects they're not going to use it. So I would encourage that the superintendent, and perhaps in conjunction with other superintendents, try to direct some concern to the Commissioner of Education and see if something might be done on a higher level to address this, whether it's being able to allocate that fuel somewhere else, but get some sort of credit, or it seems that we're certainly not going to be made whole through this situation. And in the explanation of the bus employees, our concern is to make sure they are made whole, and that's right and that's fine. But I think the school districts also have a right not to be penalized because schools were closed for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. We lost Herb.
I'm sorry?
Herb has had a rough night.
Oh, we lost Herb again?
He's done really well, though.
Well, perhaps, I don't know, Ms. The superintendent, do you think there's a certain element of fairness contained in my observation here regarding the fuel situation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are in the same situation, Elaine, and I think that's something that I can see if area superintendents are in the same boat. I don't know what their loss ratio is.
Yeah.
And once we know our loss ratio, we would have a sense of, you know, how it would impact, because, you know, these big districts can't possibly maintain that amount of fuel. So it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, or credit or some sort of future, you know, they've got the purse strings on a lot of issues, and it's not our fault. So I think the fairness issue is very important here. Thank you.
Did we lose Marissa too? Okay, good.
I'm here.
So I will keep things going then, since Herb is going.
Herb is hopping in right now.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not.
We'll move to,
Yes, he is.
There he is.
move to board comment.
Hold on, let me unmute Herb. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Okay.
We're on board comment, Herb.
I kind of went offline there for the fifth time. Okay, we're done at board comments, are we?
We are.
Okay, why don't we run through? Ann, do you have any comments?
Yes, I would really like to thank Phil, the administrators, and the teachers for the wonderful job they've done with the learning program, the online learning and all. I realize it's a whole lot more than regular teaching, but it's really appreciated. So thank you all.
Thank you. Elena?
I would say because of the uniqueness of this moment, I think we are all doing so good. And I think we should try to stay more positive and just watch less news. I think we are handling it perfectly. Something I believe it's terrible, but something good will come out somewhere. Somewhere, let's put it somewhere. So I just want to encourage everybody to be optimistic in this moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
My comment is I agree with Anne on the congratulations to the staff for a fast turnaround time. I'm involved with a lot of different school districts around the state, and I am frequently really proud of the way Wellington handles things with a cool head and doesn't jump to conclusions or freak out only to then have to change things later. So I appreciate the fact that we have someone level-headed at the helm and keeping us on course. I also want to call out the principals who've been doing their morning meetings. I watched the one that even the middle school did, and for April Fool's Day, I was laughing at it.
That's good.
It was terrific, and have encouraged other people to use video in a way that's creative and uplifting. And I think that both of the principals have really captured that, and that's what makes Wellington a unique place is the people in our schools. And I think we have to be really protective of those because they are doing, yeoman's work well beyond what they have any idea or had prepared for. And it's something we're all going to have to get through together, but I think that they should really be applauded for doing this amazing job. And then I just wanted to comment on the fuel oil question. And I think that one of the things that's interesting when you've read all of those governor's executive orders is that's exactly the type of thing that the governor should address in an executive order because it affects a lot more than just school systems. It's really not a Department of Education issue, that there are lots of small businesses around the state who buy their fuel oil in advance like that. And they're making so many other types of protections. That's the right approach. So I would encourage us as a Board of Education and as individual members, as well as for anybody who's watching this video or listening online, to consider contacting the governor because he has the power to make that change fairly quickly. So thank you all.
Thank you, Michelle. Donna?
Well, as we're all kind of muddling through this together, and I am thankful for the perseverance. And I know that there's a lot going on at once. So I think we just need to keep on keeping on. And hopefully we will continue to see the blessings in the midst of the muck. And it's so good to see everyone's face, even though we're not in person. It's still heartwarming. A couple things I did quickly check, and you'll have to check it out, but it looks like diesel fuel can be used for home heating fuel. So that may be a help there. And I would encourage us to consider the center school heating project well, the kids aren't in school and we're not having a problem, so it's not a last minute thing. I'm not sure what all is involved with that, but I don't know if we should give that up because when things break, then you're really under the gun versus taking care of it and maintaining it. So I would need more specifics about that for later. But thank you all. It's nice seeing you.
Thank you, Donna. Tracy?
I think it's all been said. I just agree with what everyone else has said. And I do really appreciate our administration and faculty and staff and all the personnel, because from what I see on through communications with the district as a parent, but also on social media, we're doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will echo everything that has been said by everyone this evening. That the staff and administration and everyone involved in keeping the school going should receive a commendation for that. They're doing a magnificent job, and we're proud of them. I don't have anything else really. In regard to, I just have one question for the superintendent in regard to the portrait of a graduate. We had some information at the last board meeting regarding some of the attributes of the graduate that we expect, I guess, in the Wellington system, which was good communication and elaborate collaboration, critical thinking, and compassionate individuals. And in checking around in other areas, we have 4. Some schools have more than 4.
Right.
And most of them have the critical thinking and collaboration and things of that kind. But on the compassionate individuals, is that mostly for the elementary schools? Because in the high school area, they don't seem to have that attribute included in their vision and core value and so forth. And the other question I have is in regard to, I know this is in the early stages, and the people involved in this are doing a lot of work to put this together, because the titles are fine, but what goes underneath there makes a big difference. And just wondering when we might expect that and how far along they are in regard to that. E.O. Smith is doing something along the same line, I think, and they have 7 or 8 attributes, I guess.
Yeah, Phil Stevens, superintendent. So, yeah, E.O. Smith is doing it. That was one of the pieces of feedback they said was they had too many. The conversation so far has been between a group of teacher leaders and administrators, and it was intended to go to an internal kind of audit review with other staff, and then something called COVID-19, unfortunately. We will come back to it. We're going to have an internal audit to share how they came up with the attributes. The compassion one was one that the committee felt strong about, and it was how they will define it. I think you'll hear what they mean by it. And so some places call it empathy. There's some places will call it mental toughness. It depends on what you said, Herb, was what comes under it. How do you define it, and why do we want our students to be compassionate? This is one of those times, right? COVID-19 is one of those times. We want our kids to be compassionate for others, and so we'll define those for the board and for the community, so they have a sense. And that committee does not have those set in stone, but they definitely can defend them, and that's what they'll be doing in their presentations to share. So hopefully we get back to that reality of what all the other things we were working on that were exciting and kind of keeping us going and move away from online learning.
Thank you very much,
it'll take some time.
Bill. And I believe we've reached the end of our agenda, and I'll call for an adjournment of our distance meeting. And again, this is kind of a trial run for us. We've only been doing this for a couple of times. I don't know how much longer we will be doing this, but it's nice to see you all, and hope to see you in person in the near future. Okay, I declare that this meeting is adjourned, and we can all sign off at this time. Thank you very much, and
Thanks
good night
all.
to you all.
Have a good night, all.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
Marissa, I'll hang on for a second for you. They're slowly disappearing.